Welcome back. The Arctic is China's latest theater of interest, even though its landmass doesn't come anywhere near the Arctic Circle. That region will become more strategically important as the climate changes and it becomes more accessible. Ship traffic in Arctic waters is up 128% over the last 10 years. Thomas Ayres is General Counsel of the Air Force, writing about the Arctic in Space News. Mr. Ayres, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. I take some comfort in the issue with the Arctic from the beginning of your piece. You write about the countries that have interests there: Canada, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and the United States. They're either us or allies, all of them with the exception of Russia. Is that a potential advantage in the work that we need to do in the Arctic?
I think so. We have great partnerships with those countries, as you said, and even with Russia. We can work with Russia. You know, we have right now today astronauts on the International Space Station with Russia, so we can work with Russia. Although certainly we work with our partners there, the 7 nations you mentioned, Canada, our nearest neighbor, and then the other countries: Norway, Finland, Sweden. Denmark, because of Greenland, of course, and Iceland. So great partnerships with those nations, and they realize that in an era of increasing strategic competition, that there are those who would like to get to the increasing availability of the natural resources there.
Another country that obviously, as I mentioned, is interested in the natural resources there is China, and you point out in this piece an interesting dichotomy. You write, China's published an Arctic strategy making clear the Chinese government's desire, you write, to control infrastructure along Arctic routes. You also point out in this piece that China hasn't yet completely shown its hand. What does that mean that we and the other countries that have an interest in that part of the world should be thinking about or preparing for regarding China?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. China, it's called itself a near Arctic nation because they'd like to be involved in the governance of the Arctic. And it's not a near Arctic nation. The more northernmost city in China is on the same latitude as Philadelphia. But China, they recognize the increasing access to trade routes, as you mentioned, in the sea. They increase the increasing access because of technological developments to the fisheries, to the rare earth materials there, and to hydrocarbons, fuels. And so they're very interested in establishing a presence there in the Arctic. And so we've just got to be very careful, because we know that China does not abide by the rule of law the way that we do, whether it's bullying and theft of intellectual property, whether it's their claims to a huge expanse of the Southern Pacific, in contravention of international law. We know the way that China works, and we have to be vigilant.
One way that China works, Tom, is to basically, for all intents and purposes, buy access to parts of the world where it would like to have influence. And you point out one of those in this piece. Tell me why we should be concerned about Shandong gold mining.
Yeah, so Canada is now considering whether or not they'll allow China to buy Shandong gold mining company. And so we know with China and civil military fusion that means, a piece of ground that China would really kind of actually own. What that would do, it would give them greater access to rare earth materials and minerals. It would give them greater access to things that are required for national defense for us. And also, we know, again, the way China treats people and treats the environment. And so the Arctic is very fragile. And we know the United States and Canada, we know how we treat the environment, and we're very, we're very careful. And that's important to the indigenous people and to the environment itself. And so we have to be careful. Hopefully Canada is very careful as they're considering this effort by China. I guess one other thing I would say is it would also give China potentially a permanent presence for satellite antenna, which would increase their capability to have satellite communications in the Arctic, which they don't have quite as well as we do right now.
The issue then, I suppose, becomes what do we do about it? What can we do about it at this point, Tom?
Well, I think we continue to partner with the nations that are in the Arctic Council that have a presence, who have a vested interest in ensuring that environment remains pristine as much as it can, that it's used for the benefit of nations that are interested in the rule of law, that are interested in the indigenous people there and the protection of those people, and those of us who are interested in commerce that is cognizant of that environment. So both in the seas, and then we also know that this is a very important for our homeland security and for power projection for the Air Force. Everyone else looks at the map of the world and the Mercator map, but when you look down on the world from the Arctic perspective, the quickest routes to much of the northern hemisphere go over the Arctic. And so that's important for us in defense of the homeland, also important for us to protect our partners and allies through power projection.
Thomas Ayres of the United States Air Force, thanks very much for joining me. It's great to have you here, sir.
Thanks. Real honor for me to be part of your show.